Listen up, weed lovers. It's 420 month, and IndieCloud.co is here to elevate your celebration. Get a massive 42% off all weed, edibles, and vapes for the entire month of April in our biggest sale of the year. This is a special year to celebrate 420, as it marks 6 years since the sale of almost all cannabis products was legalized across the country. This allows IndieCloud to deliver to you dispensary-grade legal products discreetly delivered straight to your door. No medical card needed. IndieCloud has something for everyone. Whether you're a seasoned toker or just starting out, you can explore the world of weed safely with our award-winning Soda Shop Gummy Series, our 12 strains of flower, or our record-breaking selection of vapes. Celebrate 420 responsibly all April with IndieCloud. Discreet delivery, top-shelf products, all month long. Head over to indiecloud.co/spring24, that's C-O, not .com, to snag 42% off your first order.
Is the biggest sporting event in America scripted? Follow me down the rabbit hole about the Super Bowl. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the rabbit hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we're talking about the Super Bowl. I know I said I was going to do Valiant Thor this week, and I'm not lying to you. We are going to do Valiant Thor. We're going to do it next week because I got my dates mixed up, and I thought that the Super Bowl was one more week away. It's not, so here we are. I just switched the weeks. We're talking about the Super Bowl this week. We'll talk about Valiant Thor next week. I had to get this out because I've had so many people message me about like if there's conspiracies about the Super Bowl, if I cover the Super Bowl. Thank you, Christy, for your suggestion on covering this. Guys, there are so many conspiracies, and I'm here to tell you all about them. But as always, before we get into that, let's get into the history. So American football, which is also known as gridiron football, is an American sport that evolved from rugby and soccer. So the first football game was played on November 6th of 1869 between Rutgers and Princeton universities. So at the time, there were 25 players on each team, and they used a round ball that couldn't be picked up or carried, much like soccer, but it could be kicked and batted. So unlike soccer, you could bat it, but you could use your feet, your hands, your head, your sides, whatever. Matches continued at the collegiate level for years, and the match would be played using the rules of the host school. So whoever was hosting, they had their rules and basically house rules, right? So when, for an example, if Rutgers was playing at Princeton, Princeton rules. But if Princeton was playing at Rutgers, it's whatever Rutgers rules were. Standard rules weren't created until Yale, Columbia, Princeton, and Rutgers all got together on October 19th of 1873. And they decided that there would be 20 players on each team and that the field would be 400 feet by 250 feet, or about 122 meters by 76 meters long. Harvard didn't attend this because they favored like a more rugby style game in which the ball could be carried and ran with. And you're going to see as we go through these rules that Harvard kind of won out in the long run. So Harvard preferred a more Canadian style game. So they had 11 men on the field running with the ball without having to be chased by an opponent. They had like forward passing, they had tackling, and they were using a more oblong ball. In 1875, Harvard and Yale played a game using the Harvard rules because they were still doing this thing like these four universities got together. They're like, these are the standard rules that we'll abide by. But when they played other schools, they still did like house rule type situation. So Harvard and Yale was playing. A couple guys from Princeton watched this game and they were like, that's cool. We should play it like that. So the Princeton kids went back and they introduced the sport the way Harvard was playing it to the other Princeton guys. And those guys didn't really like it. They didn't take to it quickly. Basically, they weren't really super into it, but eventually they did give in. So then Princeton, Yale, Harvard, and Columbia agreed to play using a form of like modified scoring. And these schools formed the Intercollegiate Football Association. Yale wouldn't join this until 1879, But one of their players, Walter Camp, who was like their captain of their team, he is considered to be the father of American football. He secured the rule change of 15 to 11 players on the field in 1880. And actually, he's really instrumental in a lot of the early rulemaking because he kept introducing new rules and they kept adopting them. So he also instituted the snap at the beginning of play. So the ball going from the center back to the quarterback. And the snap had to be modified because the teams would snap the ball and then they would just like hold it. And they wouldn't move, they wouldn't do anything, which resulted in no points and really like no gameplay. And so they would hold on to the ball and then the other team would get the ball and they would snap it and then just like hold on to the ball. And it was really boring. Basically, there was nothing really happening on the field. So then Camp came back and he proposed a 3-down system. So each team had 3 downs or tackles to advance the ball 5 yards. If you didn't advance the ball, then it would go to the other team. And this is why the 5-yard lines were added to the field, and also why the game is referred to as gridiron football, because the lines on the field made it look like a gridiron. A major adjustment was the reduction in field size to 110 yards by 53 and a third yards. And they also changed the scoring to 4 points per touchdown and 2 points per for a safety and a goal following a touchdown. They would get 5 points for a goal from the field, so a field goal. They also legalized tackling below the waist. So, and then at this time, we're seeing that, football was pretty dangerous. They didn't really have a lot of like safety rules. And in 1905, they saw 19 deaths nationwide, which was like the peak of deaths, because of football. That's when the rules really had to change because they're like, people are dying. I mean, obviously injuries were incredibly high as well. And President Theodore Roosevelt actually threatened the game. Like he was going to like suspend the game. You can never play this again unless the rules were changed because too many people were dying from it. As a result of this, 62 colleges and universities met in New York City to discuss rule changes because something had to change. This resulted in the creation of the Intercollegiate Athletic Association, which later became the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the NCAA. In 1906, a few new rules were introduced. So the legal forward pass, but at the time it was rarely used because there were a lot of restrictions placed on it. The playing time was reduced from 70 minutes to 60 minutes. And they increased the distance of a down from 5 yards to 10 yards, which is still what it is today. And scoring was slowly adjusted as well. So in 1909, a field goal was changed to 3 points. In 1912, a touchdown was changed to 6 points. But also in 1912, they shortened the field to only 100 yards, but gave both teams 10 yards in end zones. So the field is 120 yards, which it still is today. And they also changed the number of downs from 3 downs to 4 downs, which again is how they play it today. In 1914, they implemented the roughing the passer penalty. If you're not really familiar with football or penalties, this is either a 10 or 15 yard penalty, depending on the league, and an automatic first down if a defensive player makes contact with the quarterback or anyone who's passing the ball after he has thrown the ball. So there's a couple rules here, like if it happens within a second of the ball being thrown, it's not a penalty because you're going in for a tackle. You might not have seen that this person threw the ball already. But if they've thrown the ball and it's been a couple seconds and then you tackle them, you're getting a penalty for sure. And then that team gets their automatic first down. In 1918, eligible players were first allowed to catch the ball anywhere on the field. But all during this time, this wasn't professional football and nobody was being paid to play. Well, that's not necessarily true. The first instance of a player being paid to play football was in 1892, and he was paid $500, but it was only one person. Outside of that, they would give them like incentives so they could get scholarships. They would get gifts, like sometimes they would give them watches, which the watches they could go pawn and they could get money for them. They couldn't pay them directly, but they would pay them indirectly. But we see the National Football League being established in 1920, but it was called the American Professional Football Association at the time. And with the league came rules, as with everything, and these included like the end to bidding wars over players. They couldn't use college players. They had to use players that were no longer in college, and they couldn't pay players to leave another team. So you couldn't go to somebody and be like, hey man, I'll give you double what they're giving you for you to come to us. But the whole point of creating this league was to be able to pay the players to play. So now they had an incentive to keep playing and to actually like do their best at the game. And at the start, obviously college football was far dominant to the national football. And I mean, even now some people would argue that that's the same, but that's not what we're here to discuss. And there was a greater emphasis on the passing game in national football, which finally helped the professional level distinguish itself further from the college game. So this kind of like made people want to watch it a little bit more because it was different than college. Football became increasingly popular with the 1958 NFL championship game, and this was before the Super Bowl. It was just a championship game. And this game was between the Baltimore Colts, you heard me right, Baltimore Colts, and the New York Giants. And this game is still called the greatest game ever played. So, like, people were really, really into it. Millions of people watched it on TV. And in the 50s, like, TVs weren't that popular. So it's pretty big if millions of people are watching it on TV. In 1960, the American Football League came out, and that challenged the NFL's dominance because now there are two professional leagues. So you had the American Football League and you had the National Football League. The AFL had a television contract with the ABC television network, which again challenged the NFL, and having two leagues kind of helped to shape the game even more. The AFL had official time kept on a scoreboard, which the NFL was still having the official time kept like on a stopwatch in the referee's pocket. So unless the referee was constantly checking his watch, you don't know if you're playing for the right time. But also, if he's checking his watch, he's not watching the game and making the right calls. So double whammy there. But the AFL also had optional 2-point conversions by pass or run after touchdowns. And they put players' names on their jerseys, which, I don't know, not a huge deal, but everyone likes to be like, look, I'm Mercy, number 22, or whatever, number 18, whatever number you want to be, right? The AFL signed star college players who had already been drafted into the NFL. So this caused quite the competition between the two leagues to heat up because the NFL's like, no, that was our player. And the AFL's like, but we paid him more, so they're going to come to us. So even though the NFL said that teams could not buy players from other teams or like pay them to leave their teams, the AFL didn't follow the NFL's rules. They were a completely different league, so they could steal players if they wanted to. An example of this was that the AFL New York Jets signed Joe Namath at a record $437,000 contract. That had never been done before. That was the highest anybody had been paid at the time to play football. So it was huge. They also signed a 5-year contract for $40 million with NBC. The NFL realized that they were losing control of this situation. So finally, in 1966, the NFL approached the AFL and they talked about a merger. They're like, you know what? It's just better for everybody if we just become the one league instead of having two leagues. And the AFL agreed. And the merger wouldn't take full effect until 1970. And I'm wondering if that's the case because in 1965, the AFL signed that 5-year contract with NBC. So they couldn't fully merge until that 5-year contract was up. But they did start to find like a common place before the merger was fully in effect.
Listen up, weed lovers. It's 420 month, and IndieCloud.co is here to elevate your celebration. Get a massive 42% off all weed, edibles, and vapes for the entire month of April in our biggest sale of the year. This is a special year to celebrate 420, as it marks 6 years since the sale of almost all cannabis products was legalized across the country. This allows IndaCloud to deliver to you dispensary-grade legal products discreetly delivered straight to your door. No medical card needed. IndaCloud has something for everyone. Whether you're a seasoned toker or just starting out, you can explore the world of weed safely with our award-winning Soda Shop Gummy Series, our 12 strains of flower, or our record-breaking selection of vapes. Celebrate 420 responsibly all April with IndaCloud. Discreet delivery, top-shelf products, all month long. Head over to indacloud.co/spring24, that's CO, not .com, to snag 42% off your first order. Summer is the season of hot temperatures, outdoor adventures, and refreshing water activities. Summer is also the season of rough on your feet, causing dry, cracked heels and toes. Introducing Babyfoot, the original exfoliation foot peel that contains 16 natural extracts formulated to remove dead skin cells in 3 easy steps. Apply the booties, relax for an hour, then wash your feet. In 14 days, you've got baby smooth skin and your feet have never been softer. Letting dead skin cells build up over time is hazardous to your foot health. Our professional-grade DIY products, like our original exfoliation foot peel, our men's foot peel, or our moisturizing mask, are some of the best foot care products on the market, created with your foot health in mind. Pamper yourself with a spa day from the comfort and convenience of your own home with Babyfoot. If you want a chemical-free, easy-to-use exfoliating process from the company that created the original foot peel, it's time to treat yourself to Babyfoot. Go to babyfoot.com and use the code SUMMERFEET24 and get 20% off your first order with Babyfoot. That's babyfoot.com and use the code SUMMERFEET24.
So with the agreement, they would have a common draft that would take place every year, and they would also have a world championship game that was to be played by the champions of each league. The first championship game happened in 1966. However, after the merger was finalized, it became a championship game within the league, which is now known as the Super Bowl instead of just the football championship game. But we're going to go over some of the rules that they play by today. We're not going to go super in depth about football. There are plenty of podcasts out there about football. If you want to listen to a football podcast, I hear the Kelsey brothers do a funny one. I don't know. But go listen to a professional football player talk about football. I'm going to give you like a basic overview. So, as of today, there are 11 players on the field at one time. There are plenty of players on each team. Only 11 of them are allowed on the field. If they're the offense, they are trying to advance the ball to score. If they are the defense, they are defending the end zone to block from scoring. And if they are on special teams, they are responsible for all the kicking plays. So if they're going to do field goals, punts, any of that, that's special teams. The offense has 4 chances to advance the ball 10 yards. If they fail to do that, the ball is then turned over to the other team, and now they have 4 chances or downs to advance the ball 10 yards. So these teams can do this by throwing the ball, running the ball, whatever. Sometimes they will kick a field goal if they feel like they're not going to get their first down. When scoring, a touchdown is worth 6 points. After a touchdown, the team has the opportunity to go for more points, because why not? So they can either kick the ball through the goalpost for 1 point, or they can go for a 2-point conversion, which is basically them scoring like another touchdown and getting the ball back into the end zone is a 2-point conversion. Most teams typically will go for the field goal, but every now and then we do see 2-point conversions. Field goals are worth 3 points, and they can be attempted on any down from anywhere on the field. At any point, a team can be like, we're going to kick a field goal. Typically, you will see a team kick a field goal on a 4th down, or when there's not like a lot of time left on the clock and they're just trying to get more points. They'll kick the field goal for the 3 points. If the team misses the field goal, the ball returns to where it was kicked from, but it's now the other team's ball. Today, there are 32 teams in the NFL, and they're broken down into 2 conferences. So you have the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. And this comes from the American Football League and the National Football League. When they combined to just be the National Football League, they broke down into conferences. There are 16 teams on each conference, or in each conference. And each conference is then broken down into 4 divisions. So you have the North, East, South, and West divisions within the conference, if that makes sense. All teams play an 18-week regular season, but they only play 17 of the 18 weeks because each team has a bye week at some point where they just don't have to play. So everybody plays 17 games in the regular season. 7 teams from each conference then go to the playoffs. The number 1 seed in each conference gets a bye from the first round of playoffs, so they go straight to the second round. So you have 3 playoff games in the first round from each conference. For example, this year, the Ravens and the 49ers got the bye from the first round of the playoffs. Then you will see in the first round, you'll see the number 2 seed will play the number 7 seed, number 3 plays number 6, and number 4 plays number 5. After this first round, the teams are then reseeded, and the same thing happens. So in the second round, you'll see the number 1 seed, which, again, for this season, the Ravens were the number 1 seed. They'll play the number 4 seed, and the number 2 seed plays number 3 seed. And then for the other conference, the 49ers were the number 1 seed. Same thing. So this takes us to the conference championships. And so this year we saw the Ravens lose to the Chiefs in the AFC championship. And we saw the Lions lose to the 49ers in the NFC championship. And then that brings us to the Super Bowl. So in just a few days, we'll see the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs face off to see who wins the season. But is it all rigged? I'm glad you asked. There are so many theories going around the world of football right now, so let's dig in. The first one, and probably the most prominent one, is that the NFL is scripted. This has been pointed out a couple of times, so we're going to start with the Super Bowl logo. And I'm sure you've seen this all over social media, everywhere you look. So every year, the NFL puts out the logo for the Super Bowl super early in the season, like way in the beginning, right? And it depicts the number Super Bowl it is, like whatever number it is, and it also in Roman numerals, and it also has like a picture of a landmark to show where the Super Bowl is going to be held that year. So this year the Super Bowl is held in Las Vegas, so you have like the Welcome to Las Vegas sign or whatever. They also color the logo in really bright colors, and these colors are what is most interesting. So for the 2021 season, the logo was brightly colored with orange and yellow. This was 2 years ago. The Super Bowl happened in 2022, but it was like the 21-22 season. So this Super Bowl was being held in LA. So maybe they were trying to depict the sunset colors. There's a lot more orange in the logo than there was yellow. And there was like palm trees inside these Roman numerals. But what is interesting is that the Bengals and the Rams played that year, and one of the Bengals colors is orange and one of the Rams colors is yellow, and the theory goes that the team with the least amount of color showing or representing them in the Roman numeral will be the team to win. And that year the Rams beat the Bengals. The following year in 2022, the logo was green and red, and it was held in Arizona. So the green was showing the sky and the red was kind of showing like the rock formations. There's a lot more sky than rocks in the logo. So a lot more green than there was red. That year the Eagles and the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl and the Chiefs won. So a lot less red was showing. That's who won. Well, this year has been interesting because the theory is being circulated on the internet and we are catching on. So the NFL is like, let's see if we can trick them. So like I mentioned, this year's Super Bowl is being played in Las Vegas, and the logo that they put out was mostly purple, like on the bottom, and a little bit of red at the top. And everyone was speculating that the Ravens and the 49ers were going to go to the Super Bowl and the Niners would win because there's less red, there's more purple, that's who's going. And going into the playoffs, that actually made a lot of sense because both the Ravens and the Niners were seeded number 1 in their conferences. But I think the NFL changed who was going to go to the Super Bowl because people started catching on. So the Chiefs won and they beat the Ravens. They're going to the Super Bowl. There are a couple other reasons why they might have changed and made the Chiefs go, but we're not going to get into that quite yet because there's another kind of crazy twist to this whole thing. So Oz Perlman, who is like a mentalist, like mind reader guy, and he was actually on the NBC show Oz Knows, sometimes goes to speak to NFL like football teams during preseason. He speaks to a lot of different people about a lot of different things, but that's one of the things that I've seen on his Instagram is that he goes and speaks to NFL teams preseason. In August of 2023, so at the beginning of this football season, Oz was talking to the Jets. More specifically, he was talking to wide receiver Mecole Hardman about the Super Bowl. Obviously, if you ask the Jets who's going to go to the Super Bowl, they're going to say the Jets and whoever. So he was like, who are the Jets going to play in the Super Bowl? And Hardman said the 49ers. Then Oz asked Hardman to predict the score of the game, and Hardman said 31-21, obviously the Jets would win. Later in the season, so in like October, Hardman was traded back to the Chiefs. So from the Jets back to the Chiefs. So he had started his career with the Chiefs and was on that team when they won the Super Bowl in 2019 and in 2022. So they traded him in March last year. They traded him back to the Chiefs in October. Now the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. So will the score end up being 31-21 Chiefs? I don't know. That would be crazy. But this guy seems to read minds. Oz Pearlman reads minds. I don't know. The videos of him, they blow my mind a little bit. But look him up and decide yourself. But here's the thing. So the script had to change, right? Because everyone's like, yeah, the Ravens are going to go because of the purple. But the 49ers are going to beat the Ravens because there's less red, right? And I get that. But in 2020, it was an election year with Biden and Trump running for the presidency. That year was also a leap year. That year, the Chiefs and the 49ers played in the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs won. And the president, Biden, won the presidency. Well, now it's 2024. There's another presidential election, and Biden and Trump are running against each other once again. It's another leap year. Every 4 years is a leap year. And the Chiefs and the 49ers are back in the Super Bowl. It's just a lot of strange coincidences, I think. It does go a little bit deeper because they are saying that the script was changed because of Taylor Swift. I know. And you guys knew I was going to bring it up. Come on. So, okay, I'm not going down the Taylor Swift rabbit hole right now. It goes really deep. I'm not doing it. You guys have heard the theories about Taylor Swift. I have not covered it. I will someday, but not today. The logo wasn't wrong until Taylor Swift joined Chief Kingdom. Because she is a known Biden supporter. So the NFL changed the script to the Chiefs playing in the Super Bowl, with T Swift announcing her support for Biden in the election after the Chiefs win the game. This helps Biden win the presidency. But not only that, but some people are even saying that if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl without Taylor Swift's endorsement, like irregardless of that, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Biden will win the election. That's what's going on in the conspiracy world. So I think originally the Ravens were scripted to go. But I think that they had to change it to make everything work the way they needed it to work. There have been other things along the way that show that the NFL is scripted. There are times when the ball will be kicked for a field goal and it misses horribly. So this happened when the Bills were playing the Chiefs. The Bills were kicking a field goal. There's no reason that ball missed, and it missed terribly. And everyone was like blaming the wind. Of course, you're going to blame the wind, right? Oh, the big gush of wind came and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I don't think that, first of all, you're in a stadium, in a dome. Like the wind's not just like going to come up and over and down and, hit it. I don't know. That seems odd, but I guess I've seen it at some stadiums I've been to. Also, I don't know, it wasn't a windy day, but you know what would make a ball move like that? Magnetics. Now, I don't know a lot about magnetics. That's not really my area of specialty. I don't really have an area of specialty, but I'm just saying it's definitely a theory that's circulating, and it could make some sense. There have been other instances, literally caught on TV, and I couldn't re-find it, but I've seen it circulating, and I wanted to find it for you guys. I couldn't, so I did not link this in the sources, but just take my word for it here. There was a player, and he like was tackled or whatever. He had gotten back up, seemed to be completely fine. Then you see the coach, and the coach is like, get down, like telling him to get down or go down or something. Basically, like, get back down on the ground. You're supposed to be hurt. So this player falls back on the ground and is hurt, like, and acting like they're hurt. Almost like in soccer, when, like, you're watching a soccer match and the players, like, get hit by another player. And they are so dramatic, and they're holding their leg like, their leg's about to fall off. And they just get up and keep playing. This guy fell, he was hurt, and then he got carried off with the trainers or whatever. But it's very interesting that you have this coach being like, oh, get down, and the guy seemed perfectly fine, and now all of a sudden he's really hurt and he's out for a couple games. You football fans probably know what I'm talking about. If you're watching football and you're a conspiracy theorist, you're catching all these things. So I did not find it again for this episode, but I had seen it in the past and I wanted to include it for you guys. But another kind of interesting thing with this whole scripted narrative, there was an NFL entertainment lawyer named Dan Goodez, and he was found dead. I know, you're like, who the heck is Dan Goodez and why do we care? Well, Goodez worked for the NFL for more than 15 years, and while he was working for the NFL, actually right before he died, he was a whistleblower that told reporters that Super Bowl 53 was rigged. Basically, he decided that he liked football more than he liked money, and he didn't want the game to be rigged anymore. He wanted it to be like a real wholesome game, like it should be all along. Well, a couple weeks after he said this to the reporters, he was found dead in what was described to be a gangland-style execution. He was found shot in a car. I'm not sure if it was his car. It was a BMW. I don't know if that matters, but he was also with another man who was shot, and it's assumed that this guy was like his friend. According to Goodez, the NFL rigs the game to earn maximum revenue for the league, which actually makes a lot of sense with the Taylor Swift theory, because Taylor Swift has made so much money for the NFL, and the Kelsey brothers as well. Like Donna Kelsey and the Kelsey brothers, so Travis and Jason, they have brought a lot of really good publicity for the NFL. And so for Travis and Taylor to be dating, this whole thing just like breeds good publicity and lots of money for the NFL. I'm not saying that their romance is or is not real. I'm not getting into that. I'm not like, whatever you believe that. All I'm saying is if it is real, or even if it's not, sending the Chiefs to the Super Bowl makes the most sense if you're talking money. Okay, completely separate from the scripted narrative, right? Because there's other theories out there that's not just the NFL is scripted, which it most likely is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We also have satanic rituals happening during the halftime show of the Super Bowl, so we should talk about that. This is a huge power move by the elites to show off just how much power and control they have over everything. Because like the Super Bowl being, I would say, the biggest sporting event in America, and you have these huge names coming to perform at the halftime show, and some people just watch it for the halftime show. So they're going to use it to show you just how much they control everybody. Every year, I wouldn't say every year, a lot of the years, whoever is performing flashes some sort of symbol of the Illuminati or of the devil. Basically, like, Satan runs the world. So this is typically a triangle made with their hands, but it can be other things. So Rihanna flashed like a triangle, and she was in like blood red when she performed last year. Beyonce in 2013 flashed the triangle as well, which honestly is no surprise because she's like she has known Illuminati connections. So if you're surprised that Beyonce's flashing Illuminati, like, you have clearly not listened to the Illuminati episode. In 2018, Justin Timberlake was playing the piano, and there was like a white backdrop behind him, and there was clearly the devil silhouette in this backdrop. They tried to play it off and be like, oh, it was just a guy with a guitar. Nope, looked for sure like the devil with like the devil tail and everything. When Madonna performed, she wore an owl crown on her head, which is also symbolism for the Illuminati. J-Lo's costume, it was like sparkly and cute, right? But if you looked really closely, it definitely was like the shape of the evil goat that you see associated with the Illuminati. And then at one point throughout her performance, she did this like weird hand thing above her head to basically be the antlers of this goat. Is really creepy. There's pictures out there. The Weeknd and his dancers look an awful lot like the Handmaids and like their red robes with their white little caps from the Handmaid's Tale, which I thought was very interesting because some people have said that the Handmaid's Tale is coming true. I don't know how true that is, but that has been a theory I have heard in the world of conspiracies. So they also say, along with this theory, that the Super Bowl, like the reason it's called the Super Bowl is because it also stands for a superb owl, which again is a symbol to the Illuminati because the owl symbol. So the Illuminati, they run the world. That's why when Beyonce said, "Who run the world?" she actually meant Illuminati, not girls. Let's get into the Madden curse. So, you all have heard about Madden, which is an EA Sports like video game that was named after John Madden, and it comes out every year with the teams and the players, how it is, and everyone can play football on their, I don't know, like PS5s. I don't know what is out now, like Xbox, whatever PlayStation or Xbox gaming system you have, that's what you're playing Madden on. So there's a theory that whoever is featured on the cover of the Madden game is doomed to encounter something horrible. And it's amazing just how many horrible things have happened to these people. So the very first Madden that came out for the 1999 season, it didn't come out until 2000, it featured Detroit Lions running back Barry Sanders. That year, Sanders abruptly and very, very unexpectedly just retired early. He was just done. So that kind of like started the curse. And it goes on. There were injuries. There's players having just like terrible seasons after they've had like record good seasons. And then all of a sudden they're like, can't play to save their lives. You've had obviously unexpected retirements. You've had all kinds of crazy things that have happened to specifically the players that are on the cover of Madden. Honestly, if I was in the football world, I would be so superstitious that I would not want to be on the cover of Madden. But about 60% of the Madden cover athletes have been considered cursed. This has kind of slowed down in recent years. So in the last 10 years, from 2013 to 2023, only about 30% of the cover athletes have been cursed. So I don't know, like, if the curse is just kind of like wearing off, if it was just very coincidental. But also, like, I don't really believe in coincidences anymore. So anyway, people all around the world watch the Super Bowl. Some would argue that this is the biggest game in the world. It's for sure the biggest game in America. But, like, there are people all over the world that watch this game. With this, we're all distracted conveniently. Some people watch it for the commercials. Some people watch it for the halftime show. Some people actually watch it for the game. Some people watch it for all the things. But people are watching this. And we are so distracted. We go to Super Bowl parties. We go and enjoy each other's company. We go to bars and restaurants. all this distraction means that the government can just go about doing whatever shady things they want to do without anybody paying attention. So I challenge you after the Super Bowl this weekend, kind of pay attention to what happened. Pay attention, like look up what the government's been up to, because they're always up to something shady. I would bet that the day of the Super Bowl is the deep state's favorite day of the year, because they can do whatever they want because most of the people are not paying attention. And most things, like the next week, everyone's talking about the Super Bowl, so they're not really reporting on anything real. Not that the news reports on anything real anymore anyway, because it's all rigged. That's a whole different show. But even like all media outlets are talking about the Super Bowl for the next week. They're not even talking about anything else that went on in the world. Distraction at its finest. But of course, what do I know? I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Until next week, my friends, stay skeptical, and I'll see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Balaha, for our awesome intro.